Thanks,
Where's our fire hats?
Exactly. Good morning, everyone. All right, so we're going to have to build up the energy. I'm not a coffee drinker, but I assume the ones that are, you actually have had your first cup of coffee. And so, but for those of us that need just a little bit more than the smoke to wake us up, this will be an experiential, interactive session, so I'm warning you up front. Let me thank Audrey for extending the invitation and then for the committee for saying yes to invite me this morning to share a few thoughts with you. And what I want this to be about is translation and application of what we all know. So we're going to get grounded on what we all know and have experienced, but then how does that apply to us as marketers, as leaders, whether it's B2C or B2B. And so that's my goal, is to be your doctor of marketing optometry today. And no, we will not do all of the eye exam, but there will be some testing along the way. So to start off, as any good eye doctor would actually have, if you're old school and you need paper and pencil, please pull that out. I know there was paper and pencil in your blue bag. And if you're of new school and you don't like paper and pencil, pull out your device, because I need you to now number 1 through 5. All right. So this is about moving from just having eyesight to actually having vision. All right. So you have to be ready. First picture, what do you see? Second picture, what do you see? Third picture, what do you see? Fourth picture, now what do you see? And for number 5, can you see the man playing the saxophone? Now, I don't know if you're sitting next to your best friend or if you just met them or you haven't had the opportunity to introduce yourself. Find a partner, and I need you to compare what you wrote down 1 through 5 with what they wrote down 1 to 5. So find out if you saw the same things from the exact same picture. Okay. If I can bring us all back together now. Don't worry if you didn't see the same things. But can I ask you the question, did everyone see the exact same thing in all 5 pictures? No. Okay. But on number 5, when I asked you if you could see the saxophone player, did everyone see the saxophone player? Okay. Here's what I want you to notice. No one was wrong in what they observed. But when it stands before you, it's obvious. If I tell you what to look for, you immediately can see it. Was there something else in the picture with the saxophone player? Did anyone see something other than that? Yes? A woman's face. So for those of you that didn't see it, part of our discovery and time this morning is when we have eyesight, we can see. You saw something. But what I want us to now think about is how to have vision. And I'm going to talk about elements of sight that we don't always think about. But if we translate them in a similar fashion in our work and everyday lives, it would be amazing what else is on the picture, right? So first, I'd like us to watch a video.
The monkey business illusion. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the ball. The correct answer is 16 passes. Did you spot the gorilla? For people who haven't seen or heard about a video like this before, about half missed the gorilla. If you knew about the gorilla, you probably saw it. But did you notice the curtain changing color or the player on the black team leaving the game? Let's rewind and watch it again. Here comes the gorilla, and there goes a player, and the curtain is changing from red to gold. When you're looking for a gorilla, you often miss other unexpected events. And that's the monkey business illusion. Learn more about this illusion and the original gorilla experiment at theinvisiblegorilla.com.
All right, so did everyone see the gorilla? No, I didn't see the gorilla the first time I saw this either. And did anyone notice that the curtain had changed colors? Because what were we focusing on? Counting how many times that ball was being passed. And so in your everyday work, if all you do is focus on what seemingly is the task, you might miss some of the other obvious things that are right there that's trying to tell you, see me, I can help you. There's important pieces that you're missing. So remember, I told you this is interactive, and I'm not sure if everybody knows everybody at their table, so here's another opportunity for you to get to know each other. Find a different partner than the one that you talked to see if we saw the same things. And I'd like you to spend 1 minute each in introducing yourselves to each other, as though you need to tell the rest of the table who the person is. That person can't speak for themselves, you have to speak for them. So you have a minute to introduce yourself so that that person knows how to introduce you, and vice versa. So it's a quick exercise. So you only have a minute, so you can move around if you don't have a partner, but you have a minute to introduce yourself and a minute to have that person introduce themselves. Okay, time for you to switch introductions. Okay, I need everybody to come back together again and head back to your table. Okay, so if we were in a different setting and I was using this as sort of an icebreaker to have everybody to get to know everyone, I would actually have you to turn back to back. But since I'm using it in a different format, what I'm going to ask you to do is close your eyes, because you can't cheat. Close your eyes. And now, instead of you preparing yourself to introduce the person that you just met, I want to know, could you tell the group, if you were asked, what color eyes, what color hair, whether or not they had earrings or necklace on, if he had a mustache or beard, and anything about the blouse or shirt? Could you actually do it? And then if you opened your eyes, would you be right when you look at the person? Anybody feeling like they got 100% on their introduction? No. It's a hard habit to have, is that at the end of the day, you were looking at the person the entire time, and yet you missed all of the key details, and you were looking right at them. You might have even missed their eye color, and yet you looked at them while they were talking to you. And so what I'd like us to now do is have a walk so that we all are grounded on the same aspects of sort of our annual eye exam. I'm going to quickly go through sort of the annual eye exam aspects of it, and that way when we talk about translations, we're all on the same page. So we all go to our annual eye exam. If you don't, just nod and say, yes, you do. But if not, I strongly encourage you, as a former employee of Luxottica, I really do want you to go get your eyes exam. But you go in and you're hoping for this 20/20 vision. It's all about making sure that you have your sharpness and truly vision acuity, so that at 20 feet, they say things are good. If you can see clearly and it's all in focus, you have 20/20. And for those of us that wear some additional help aids, you hope that the prescription hasn't changed, right? And so you go in with the hope of 20/20 vision. And for whatever reason, we think that means that everything is perfect. Nothing was wrong with your vision by the definition of 20/20 vision, yet you missed so much of this morning of what was on the screen or what was right in front of you. So what I want us to do is actually help translate a little around our vision. So here are the key elements of what I wanted to extract from vision. The first piece is around peripheral, right? So when we were all driving up 71, 75, 471, whichever way you got here, Reading Road, you were focused of what was actually right in front of you, but you had to know your side vision. If you were changing lanes, you have to know what's happening around you. It's the angles beyond just directly in front of you, what's happening at that 45-degree angle. Are you able to see outside of just where you're focused or looking? The second piece, so I have 3 children, and so the oldest one had the greatest difficulty with depth perception. Right now, she still fears making that left turn, because she has to gauge whether she can make it if she turns with traffic. It's about distance, it's about gauging. Can you ascertain whether you can safely make it into traffic without causing any issue for you or for the other drivers? So you have to have good depth perception to basically have your driver's license. The third piece, we talked about focus. It's being able to see clearly what's there, right? And so every now and again, you're like in the conference room, you're trying to adjust the screen because things don't seem in focus, and it may not actually be the screen. It might be that you really do need to go see if the prescription has changed, right? But it's about focus helps your vision. The other one I put on the screen is about another piece we don't talk about. Is there a number in the first circle that you see? What's the number? 8. And is there a number in the second picture? What's that number? Okay, so some people actually have color challenges, and some people really are defined as colorblind. They can't see the 8 or the 12. And so it's important for each of us to understand about color, and I'll talk about that in a few slides. The last one is, do you remember when you go to, as a part of the eye exam, the doctor will say, cover your right eye, and then they'll have you read everything with your left eye, and then they take the little stick and they say, change eyes, cover the left eye, now tell me what you see. And then they make you put it down and they say, tell me what both eyes are seeing. It's about eye coordination. How do your eyes work together? Because sometimes there is a notable difference between your right eye or your left eye being stronger than the other. And so your prescription reflects that difference. But the point is, do they work in concert together to help you see? And so as we look through our elements of vision, I think they're going to help us. But first, some of us need additional assistance. So it's easy to see who has eyeglasses on, and those of us that just pull them out to read so that we don't always have glasses on. But how many of you wear contacts? All right, so, and has anyone had LASIK surgery? So, okay, so there are several of us that have had adjustments that have been made to help us see clearer, to see better, right? And some it's obvious and others it's not. There's no issue with having the aid, it's making sure you use what's available. It's a shame to always do this when you could put glasses on and you could see, but you have the people that keep adjusting how far the paper is from their line of sight, right? And so what I believe is important is I want to walk us through our marketing vision. And I'll use each aspects of the tools for us to then see the application, at least as I'm defining it, around what we move from eyesight to actually having vision. So to help us with that, Wayne Dwyer actually has a quote. He said, if you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at will change. And so it is that theory, that platform, that premise that I'm going to work from that says if we would just change the way we think about information, our interactions, the experience will change both for you as well as for your consumers or whoever is your business partner. And so we'll come back to this theory, but the concept is how do we change the way we look? And I'm going to ultimately say, how do you envision as a leader, as a team member, as a partner to deliver on the promise of your organization? So being true to my P&G upbringings, we always have to start with the who because the consumer is boss, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about the focus around the consumer, but I'm also going to talk about the consumer as a shopper. So remember back in the day, I won't date myself at this particular point, but back in the day, when we talked about the consumer, everything was about demographics. If you're going to do any great marketing, you had to know the age, you wanted to know their income, you wanted to know their education, you wanted to know if they're married, how many kids they have. That was the sort of full template to determine how do I find the people that I'm seeking for my brand. We have moved beyond that and expanded to know that we have sub-optimized the conversation and the connection if that's the only thing that we have. We've now moved to a psychographic aspect of who that person is, from their personality, their attitudes, their beliefs, the community, their interests, the things that they value, the way they live. It's when you bring the whole person into the conversation that you have a richer connection with the people that you consider as your consumer. And so we've moved from just seeing what's right in front of us to adding a broader context for the consumer, which I think has made our jobs a little more exciting. Yeah, it's a little more challenging to try to find people when you can't always tap into what the attitude or the belief is, but it means we have to do a little bit more work to ensure that we're actually reaching the whole person and not just the demographics of someone. Another aspect of focus is being able to see your who through the applications of what you do. So there are many different subscriptions that brands are using. So I don't know if there are any pet owners in the room. And so Chewy will actually have a different personalization and customized situation. They have someone that hand writes you a note about the food that you just purchased for your dog or for your cat. You can have a different shopping experience. Remember when QR codes were all the craze and everybody had them? Well, here they are sitting on wine bottles. Because when you're shopping, you know what you want from your meal and the experience you want your guests to have, and you need to know if that wine is the right wine to accompany the meal. But we also remember everybody had to have a mobile app, right? So everybody that was the app craze. We need to be able to see what's there. And the point is, can you focus on what matters most to the consumer based upon who they are, how they live, what they need, and what they want from your brand? And so the ability to focus is there for us to move forward with. The next aspect is around them as shoppers. So I don't know if anybody is familiar with or use, say, Blue Apron or any of the others, but they just made shopping easier. They said, you don't have to go get all the ingredients, we'll put it in a box and we'll deliver it to you. And you don't have to worry about finding time to get off 71 to get to Kroger to actually go and shop. It's already there when you get home, and it's there for the days that you actually subscribed, right? So when you use peripheral vision, we're looking at the things that are on the side, bringing things in context that are important to the consumer as they shop. I'd prefer not to get off 71 to then have a moment to stop to get back on 71 to then finish my journey home. But anyone use the Nike or Panera aspects of changing how we shop? You have the Nike cubicles so that you can actually get your purchase right there in the lockers that they have. And of course, if you don't want to wait in line at Panera's, you can actually go to the Cube and pick up the bag of food that you have. So if you're not familiar, both are really good extensions on how consumers are shopping. They say, I don't want to have the same journey, same experience. Can you make it easier for me? And then I think everyone knows Alexa and every aspect of what she saves us from that we forgot to do, and then thank goodness for Prime that you can get it in 2 days, and so you'll look like the great parent or the great friend or the great coworker, even though you forgot, it still got there on time. And then for those of us that travel a lot, Expedia becomes a good friend. Even if you just decide on your vacation, what is it that I want to do? You can use Expedia to help truncate that journey of figuring out which flight, which hotel, which rental car company. How do you make this easier for the shopper? Because they want to bring all of those components together, but they surely don't want to spend all day going to various websites and then seeing that the one that they now want is booked or the price changed, etc. And the last one I have is, I haven't used it, but it's beginning to pick up, moving from just the little clinics that you could go inside of, say, Kroger to have an exam if you couldn't get to your pediatrician with your kids. It's now having a virtual doctor. Anybody used a virtual doctor yet? Okay, so then you know that it's picking up, that it's moving beyond just using online banking. But the shopper says, I want a different experience. I don't want to go into the doctor's office with the sick people. I'm sort of sick, but I don't want to be really sick when I leave, right? And so it says, well, if we can change that shopping, if you will, journey, it's only predicated on the ability to see beyond what's right in front of us. Because we would not have seen a locker or a cube, or we wouldn't have seen the opportunity to do banking or any physical changes with a doctor via a mobile device. I'm challenging you to think about peripheral vision. What does it mean to you? And if you broaden your line of sight, what might you see that would cast a bigger vision for you and your company? Anybody an IKEA shopper? Okay, so remember when they opened up the big IKEA out in Westchester and there were just lines of people? I never understood that, but there were just lines of people. I was like, does everybody need furniture? But anyway, it's just like lines of people. And I don't know, it might be those people, I'm not the early adopter, so it might be the people that stand in line for Apple anything and they have to be the first one to say that they have it. But IKEA is different than any other furniture store journey. And if you haven't actually been inside of one, it's definitely a place to visit. You might not buy anything, but it's worth the journey. And so this was one of the maps that I found online. And I'm going to call this a little bit about seeing in color and being able to see distinctively. Because it is a similar kind of retail environment. They're wanting us to make a purchase, but the experience is very different than others. In fact, online, IKEA says, we're taking you on a journey through IKEA, and there's only one route, so relax and enjoy the ride. So they actually told you going in there's only one way in and one way out. Because when I went the first time, I'm like, is there a shortcut? Because I'm really not interested in all this. And they're like, nope, you got to keep winding your way around this whole building, right? But here's what I think has changed now that I know that there's the one way in and one way out. I've actually been more observant. I changed my line of sight and could see the distinction that they were having around this furniture shopping journey. Here are the things that I wrote down, and those that are familiar with IKEA, you could probably add to my list. They're distinctive because they have very good wayfinding and signage. I'm never lost. I actually know where I am throughout the store. I don't know sometimes how long I have to still wind my way through, but I at least know where I am. I'm not lost. And midway, they have usually a restaurant. I don't know if it's really at the half point, but in my mind, you're like, wow, we could relax, we could refuel because we still have more to go. But they recognize that I might not be as happy at the end of my destination if I probably didn't have a moment to stop, especially if you have kids or others with you. They actually do have the products in a display room. So for those of us that are visual learners, I like to be able to see what you're saying. And so they're able to help me see the room, even if that's not the room that I'm going to actually create. I at least have a model. It's a different version of HDTV. So I don't know if you guys watch Chip and Joanna, but I just saw them yesterday. So of course it was a rerun, but it was still good to see it again. She does amazing things to a room. But they also, for those of us that might be forgetful or you just had an unplanned trip, IKEA will also give you measuring tape and paper, right? That's the thing you say, why did I forget that, right? But you need to know, will it fit the room so it looks good, but will it fit my room? And so that becomes an important piece. They then have a special area of customer service. That's when they know you will come back. Somebody that made a purchase is going to come back. They have comfortable chairs. They actually invite you to sit down, relax. So now you don't know that you've been waiting probably as long as you were waiting based upon their customer service. They anticipated, they distinguished their furniture shopping, buying, and overall experience different than any other furniture store that I've been a part of. The question is, can you see the shopper, their journey, and their experience bigger and broad enough to ultimately anticipate and prepare for what they're asking you for as the brand? So I have another one. Anybody have a young daughter or remember when you had to go get the American Girl doll? Anybody had to do that? Okay. So I only had one of the three girls, but American Girl was there. Okay, so if you haven't been to Rockefeller Plaza, in 2017, American Girl actually opened a 40,000 square foot store. It is a flagship like none other. It's worth just journeying, even if you don't have a little girl with you. If not, I'm sure there'll be one that you can tag along with her and her parents, and they wouldn't mind. You know, when I was saying yesterday in our bonus workshop about Walmart, when they opened up the supercenters, Walmart was about lingering longer, and they wanted you on the right side to the left side. They wanted you throughout the store. They didn't lock you in as IKEA, but there were a lot of places you could go to spend money. So I actually went in, and you actually can see the things that they get to do. This, for me, if you were comparing it versus the old days of Toys R Us, this is if you saw the doll as a doll and it was a transaction. But if you saw buying the doll and the relationship with the doll to be an experiential aspect, like American Girl does, you would see revenue and you would see experiences both for the girl and potentially, if the doll could speak, even for the doll, but for the parents. Here's some things that I noticed that you can do in this particular Rockefeller store. They have party options in the cafe, right? Because every girl loves a party, right? And so you don't have to go to Magic Kingdom. You can just go to American Girl and have a party right there in their cafe. They have content hubs, so every good marketer, you got to reinforce the brand and ensure that they're seeing your message at all times because the parents are not always focused on the same thing, so their message is always streaming throughout the store. They have a girl and doll salon. Can you hear the money that is just going on, right? So not only can they get their hair done and alike, you can get your ears pierced. I didn't know that. And the girls can also have manicures. I don't know how many hours, I didn't find that online as to how many hours an average shopper or family spends with American Girl, but it's gotta be a lot because guess what? They even have a design studio. So not just pick off of the rack, we're gonna customize and design what you and your doll actually want. So now we have to have measurements, we're gonna have the clothing, but you and your doll have. So that changes from buying a doll at Toys R Us or going in the back of Walmart or Target to make a purchase to having an experience that's memorable for each of you, and maybe not so much for your credit card, but at the end of the day, it's like going into Costco. You always seem to get more than you ever go to Costco for. But it's an experience that is truly going to be lasting for everyone. That's understanding your shopper, such that I saw beyond them wanting to buy a doll to having an experience that says, I solve needs you didn't even know you had. And in fact, many more people want to participate and stay longer and buy more, which at the end of the day, that's all good for the CEO and the CFO. I thought I would shift to sort of an aspect of knowing your why. If you haven't read Simon Sinek's Start With Why, it's a great read for those of you that are big on videos. I think you could go on YouTube. It's probably 18 minutes. The longer one, I wouldn't do the shorter one. You want to make sure you get the full aspect of what he's talking about. But at the end of the day, if we looked at products, I wanted us to spend a second making sure that we understand your why. Because Simon says people don't actually buy what you do. They're actually buying why you do it. And so if you know your why, your vision will actually be bigger than just having eyesight. So now we all have different experiences with the 6 brands I'm going to put up, but I believe the why of each of their brands would be so clear that we all can more or less be similar in our statements on the why. So I thought I would start with one of my favorite places. I'm a Floridian, but it never gets old, Walt Disney. So why Walt Disney? What is Walt Disney's why? This is the interactive part. Make people happy. Creating a place for families to come together. I heard something this way. Magic. So if you've never been there with a child that melts down, and you're like, how do I make this look good? And they're just like full out throttle cry, right? There's somebody at Disney World that always shows up and has like a magic wand, and things become so much better. And I don't know if that was the magic that they wanted to deliver, but it's amazing when it happens. And whether you're on the Disney cruise ship, you're in the Disney store, whether you're at one of their resorts, the point is their why is clear no matter how you experience Disney's why. Next one. What's the why of Facebook? Why is this even in existence? Okay, we have connection, I heard. What else? What was the other word? Sharing. So connection, sharings, community, we can agree that that was the intent or how people are actually using Facebook. The why is about making sure that people are able to stay connected or resume connections that they may have lost over time. The next one is the Ritz. So I was actually there this week. Why Ritz? What is it about that experience that's meaningful and consistent no matter which Ritz-Carlton you go to? Why Ritz? Luxury. Excellence. Any other? Personable. So I believe in the personable excellence they deliver. Is they were sort of customer service before everybody started talking about Chick-fil-A and great customer service when you were at Chick-fil-A. This was when everybody smiled. They genuinely cared whether you had a rough way to get to the hotel, it was a horrible flight, or whatever it was. They make things better. They want you to be happy. Some people, I'm not so sure they care whether you're happy or not. They just want your credit card, your ID, and then they want you to go to your room. Here's your key, Miss Washington, and have a good stay. But the Ritz actually wants me to have a good stay. If you look at this logo, what's the why of Apple? What did they say that they were here for? Creativity? What was the other one? Innovation. I like that word. There was another one over here. Think different. So when they started, it was about computers, right? So they were going to make sure that if we think about Apple, how do you view the computers was sort of the early stages. But it has been about innovation and technology and saying, what do we think about with technology? Who would ever think that you would actually do more than tell time with a watch? I still just tell time with my watch. For those of you that are high end, remember I don't lead the edge, I follow after, right? So for those that have a watch that does more than tell time, imagine how that changed because someone at Apple was able to cast a wider view of what's possible, what's needed beyond just telling time, right? The next one I have, Tesla. Why Tesla? Reinventing energy. But what's the thing that I'm buying? A transportation, right? So they said, we're moving beyond transportation because our why is about sustainability, about energy, and seeing how that connects with transportation. But they're very clear in every bit of their advertising around their why. If you look at the last one that I have, the United Way. So hopefully we all, especially those are from Cincinnati, that we're all big supporters of the United Way. I'm a strong United Way supporter no matter which city I've lived in. Why does the United Way exist? To help people. What else would they say? If I help people, what am I helping? Community. So that's the key aspect of the United Way. When you think of all the organizations that they give money to, it's not just about one organization that's a benefactor. But if I can help families, if I help children, when they are stronger, stronger families mean stronger communities. And I believe that that ensures that their why is always clear. No matter which community you live in, the United Way is here to ensure that our families are stronger and our communities are stronger. Bless you. If you you always have to be polite. I mean, you wouldn't want to miss a blessing. So everybody remember Subway, $5 footlong? All right, so I want to shift a little bit to depth perception, because sometimes what is in the news does not mean you should participate in it. So I just pulled a couple of the $5 emblems that I could find online. Everybody had a $5 something or another, right? So, but it started originally with Subway and the $5 footlong. Here's where depth perception becomes important. As leaders, you have to think about the whole system. The financials worked for Subway. Everybody cannot make $5 work for their P&L. But everybody doesn't know how far you could go. Remember, we also had the dollar menu. I think even Target had sort of like the value section when you first walked into Target. Everybody was moving around this value about a lower price. But if you are a brand that is about luxury, should you participate in the thing that might be newsworthy in this particular moment, it might not be right for you. Every QSR should not have participated in the $5 craze that even still continues. And even the Coca-Cola and Pepsis of the world got caught up in it because now you can get them for $1. I don't know if they want it to be just a dollar beverage, but they're now $1 because all of these things started happening, and the only way you could make the portfolio and the profit margins work is I had to give away something, but I had to make money on that beef or on that chicken, right? And so at the end of the day, do you understand, should you make a turn into the lane of traffic of $5 meals? That may not be right for your brand, so you have to have the ability to know, I shouldn't take the turn now, I need to wait. Let that pass, because that's not right for my brand, for what I'm trying to build. Or for those of you that are a part of the opportunity for $5 and what that means to your brand, definitely seize the day. Go about it with all the effort that you can. But at most of the CPG companies, we used to do price elasticity. So for those that are researchers in the group, I'm still a lover of price elasticity. It helps you determine what you should or shouldn't do, right? So I'm the data geek. I really fell into marketing. I was pre-med, so I usually take everything as a scientific project before I do a creative project. And when I think about it, price elasticity helps me determine what are the guardrails. Julie, if you move too high on the price point and you move outside of $49 or $99 and you move to a different place, although you say you want to, you don't have the right to do it. If you can understand the depth to which you can go, then you can change what your price points are that ultimately enhance your margins or your overall P&L. The question becomes, what problem are you solving for? And when you don't know why you're solving with the $5 footlong, you get caught into something that's not good. I wanted to shift to a how. And the how, I'm going to break into a couple of different areas. So for those of you that move more in the B2B space, remember years ago, a lot of people were doing licensing. That was the word, that was the conference everybody was going to, was a licensing conference. But even in the midst of licensing, there's a lot that's happening around co-branding. And whether you look at Red Bull and GoPro, to, man, Taco Bell, they have a lot of partnering. So this was just the one I pulled up with Doritos. But then you have Peloton and Weston. So for those of us that are having a different experience at the hotel and you're staying there longer, how do you change travel and the time that's there, not just a place to rest? But then also, how does Nike and Apple work together? This is the eye coordination part. How could two work together to enhance the experience beyond what each of them individually would have provided us? So if, as a B2B partner, how do you show up with the other business to do something bigger than what you could have ever done by yourself? I encourage us to look for those partnering opportunities because they're there, but it's right in front of you, but because you weren't looking for it and you were counting the number of times the ball was being passed, you missed the opportunity. Even in this meeting, someone at your table, someone in this room could be a business partner, but if you don't think about it, then in your networking and exchanges, you miss the opportunity to at least see the idea of possibility. The next one is around moving toward causes. Remember years ago, everything was about a corporation's foundation and you had the financials. So what were the key things, the foundation? Usually it was around scholarship. But if you're able to have good coordination, knowing your why, you're able to move into causes. And that's a big part of what our consumers are asking for. What do you stand for? What matters to you beyond if I'm a shareholder and I want profit and yeah, I want return, can we see some other causes? One of the first ones that I took note of was Dove Real Beauty. And so when you looked at that campaign, and it still is available now and finding new ways to be refreshed, it was about making sure as an individual woman, my beauty was embraced. There wasn't a particular model or a version of it. They actually said, this is real beauty. It's not touching it up and it's not putting it in like sizes. It's actually just expressing myself. I don't know if all of you have seen any of the pieces from P&G. They had one called The Talk. And so, and now the latest one they introduced was called The Look. And so the aspect there is really around racial bias. And P&G has taken that case on and moved toward a council and working with CEOs to say, what is our responsibility around racial bias and what is occurring in our country? And so they have moved to a cause around, do you have the talk? And do you know what talk I'm talking about? Because when you used to say it, as my dad would call it, it's the birds and bees, right? So we're only talking about sex on the talk. That is not the talk that P&G actually was sharing. If you haven't seen any of these videos or pieces, please take a look. The other one was Always did a piece on Like a Girl. How do you take a statement that was basically a negative? You throw like a girl. That was not an affirming way to say it. But now with that campaign, it's I throw like a girl. And how do you take same words, change them, and empower young girls? And that had nothing to do with what the Always proposition was. But it's a cause that they believe richly in. One of the early ones, actually, while I was at Procter & Gamble, introduced My Black is Beautiful. And that was when you were seeing many more women of color moving to a natural hair look. How do you embrace every aspect of who I am versus trying to make me fit a certain demographic or profile, but know that however we show up, it can be beautiful. But can we, as P&G, actually show and support beauty in different forms? And the last one is, do you have coordination to know a cause like Stomp Out Bullying, right? And what are the things that you can stand for that's a part of what you know is in your why, that when you put it in tandem with your work, it actually enhances the experience? Because this reaches more. I have to believe that there was a greater brand awareness. There was greater engagement and conversation in each of these, that people started taking those brand messages beyond where the brands would have initially have gone if they had done just a 15 or 30-second spot. How makes a difference based upon your cause? So before, I started with the tools of eyesight, right? So whether you had eyeglasses, whether you had contacts, whether you had LASIK. Here are 4 that I've pulled together and happy throughout the day that I'm here to hear from you or to share others. But these were 4 that I wanted to highlight as to how then, Julie, should I walk away from this time together looking at our vision. I believe it's important to have a global view. If you don't work for a global company, I believe it's still inherent and important that there's so much happening around the world that just having a domestic US or even North American view, you miss out to the diversity of how people show up, of how they live, what their experience. You find trends early in other countries, but it means that you have to step out of your comfort zone and actually journey to a different place, whether you actually go there physically or not. Take a global view to the question, and you'll be amazed at what you might actually see. The second piece, and I highlighted it on yesterday, was around market immersion. So remember, I like data, but I also believe that I, as the marketer, have a point of view. But the person, if I'm really believing my work is about the consumer, then I might want to make sure I understand their journey, their experience. So can you take a walk in your stakeholders' shoes? We did, when I was leading our shopper marketing organization at P&G, we actually did, Plano, Texas at that time was a place where a lot of innovation was happening, and even Walmart had a different experience of what would that store look like. And immerse yourself, but not just say I visited the store. What if you visited the store with a shopping list, with only so much money, and then find out if the journey was as easy and enjoyable when now you're up against the clock, against money. And of course, before everyone walked out of the van, I threw them a curveball and told them they got the call from their mother and they needed to buy one more thing for her before they came to her house. It never ceases to amaze me. You think you go in and then someone says, but oh, by the way, could you do whatever? If you can immerse yourself into the roles, into the lives of the people you're seeking to serve through your marketing work, I think you will have an enhanced understanding, which now opens up the peripheral of what you see. It sharpens your focus. So I wouldn't be Julie if I didn't put data on here somewhere. I'm a strong believer in test and learn. Whether it's failing early, the point is you don't know until you try, right? The beauty of having 3 kids, they all walked at different times, right? So I read the book and I was trying to make sure that they were on target according to what the book said, but all 3 of them didn't follow the book. Right? And they walked at different times, but they never gave up. They pulled up, they took a step, they fell down, they got back up, you encouraged them, you clapped, and then they did some more. Well, after a while, the standing and the stepping turned to walking. But it didn't happen on the same cadence for each child, and nor with the same level of success. There might have been a little more falling down for one of my children than the other. So at the end of the day, how do you make sure that you're using the data that you have, the intelligence that's right there, that's in the building? If you would ask, apply it, test and learn, be curious. Because many times, if you were curious, you might have seen that the curtain changed because you were looking for it. When you were talking to the person, you were listening. It didn't change that you were listening, but you were curious because you wanted to know, oh, those are wonderful earrings. But if you weren't curious to know, you're just like, the person wore what they wore, and I just want to know so I can introduce you. I'm tasked and focused on checking the box. The last one is learning from outside your industry. I've been very fortunate when you travel and you go to different conferences. One of the things is that when you make a new friend, why not ask them, can I come? Especially when it's in a non-compete situation. You learn so much from other people. If you're able to see their world, to see their journey, to see their brand, imagine what you would find out when it has nothing to do with your day-to-day. It's easier to always tell someone else how they can or should do something than to look internally and tell that to yourself. So why not learn by looking somewhere else? And people are willing to share. Usually it's just that we don't take the time to ask. So I encourage us to use all 4, or at least take one of them and add to your toolkit. So I have 3 pictures that I want to talk about what good vision looks like. For me, this could have been just another wedding. This wasn't just another wedding. This was a management of making sure that 2 countries now have come together. We have royalty and common people coming together. We have black and white coming together. This is if you can see it beyond just being a wedding to being something more. If you didn't read about it, there was an amazing moment at graduation. I mean, outside of just being happy that your children graduate, right? But as a parent, I'm not sure if the children were more excited than the parents were, but at Morehouse College in May, Vista Equity Partners founder and his family, Robert Smith, actually paid off the debt of the students that graduated. Oh, to have been in that class, right? But this week, the news was that he's paying off for the parents that have taken the loan as well. I don't know how many million it'll total, but could you imagine that graduation took on a completely different look and feel because it was more than just graduating. He's paid it forward in lives of so many young men at Morehouse College. That's changing what graduation looks like. The last one I have is about, this could have been any step, just one step. But this wasn't just someone taking a step. It was about Neil Armstrong and taking a step and ultimately changing the course of time and making this a leap. If you can change your sight to enhance it to being a vision, I believe if you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at will change, because what's underneath is usually greater. It's not just what we can see, it's all the things that we were missing. And so everyone has always seen this iceberg, right? So what's at the top is what's obvious. It was what you could see, the old lady or the young lady. But it's what's underneath that's really impactful. And I hope that there's something that's about this eye exam through marketing lens that you have journeyed with me, that maybe it's your peripheral, maybe it's your depth perception, maybe it's your focus, maybe it's your eye coordination, maybe it's the distinctivity in the color that you're able to see or not see. What I'd ask you to do is change from just seeing, because Helen Keller talks about just what it means to be blind. It's a different to have sight. It's another thing, in my view, to have vision. So hopefully you'll change the way you look at things, because when you do that, what you look at will actually change. Thank you guys for your time. So Andy, do we have a few minutes for questions, or?
About 2 questions.
Okay.
But you'll be here.
I am here the fullness of the day,
full day.
And you're welcome to come over to the table if your table is full or you make a decision to switch. Hint, hint. I only have 2 people at my table. So, questions? Anyone have a question good for the group?
Not one question?
Hey, Julie, thanks for the talk.
Thank you.
I'm wondering if you have a routine that you go through to find inspiration on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis, because a lot of what you showed was things to inspire us. Thanks.
Yeah, so day to day, my children and I, we say affirmations. I firmly believe that what you say is what ultimately you manifest. So you have to change the language that you use, because words really do matter. And so they say affirmations, one of which I started really early, and I hold them accountable, even at whatever, 2 and 3. The point is I had witnesses in the carpool as I'm going to daycare. So my point was I didn't want them to be on red. So I was like, okay, how do we have a green day so that everybody's happy at the end of the day, and that, you know, everybody at the daycare said that I had great kids, right? And so they had to do affirmations. And one of them is, today I'll make good decisions. I will be a leader, not a follower. I will focus and I will finish. So I said it for me, but I thought it was applicable to them, because for me, casting blame on someone else to say why you didn't do something means you were following, you weren't leading. And therefore, if they were on red, you can't tell me that Johnny was the reason why you got in trouble, because you told me in the car you were going to be a leader, not a follower. And I was really big about making sure that you focus and know what you want out of the day. Because if you don't know what you want from the day, then I don't know how you can ascertain if it was a good or bad day. So that's just one of the 2 affirmations that they say. I actually, if I know it's going to be a tough week or I have a long week with a lot of travel, I dress the outside for the inside. So I'll wear brighter colors, because remember, I don't drink coffee, so I'm going to have to wake up some kind of way. I got to get my energy flowing. So yesterday I had on orange, today I have on yellow. So it's been a long day of week of travel. So I try to make sure that I show up in a way that is a full Julie, so that therefore I give you everything, and at the end of the day I've left it all on the field. Anybody else? Yes. The mic is right behind you.
You've worked with a lot of large corporations where you have to influence other C-level
Yes.
folks to change the way they think. I'd be interested in hearing, this slide really says a lot to me.
It does.
I'd be interested in hearing, how do you go about changing the way others look at things?
Yeah. So I'll respond in change two pieces. It helps if you build relationships. If anybody's read 7 Habits and a student of Covey, it's about making deposits. And so in the C-suite, in any suite, it's important that you have relationship with the people that you work with. Because when I ask you to shift, when I ask you to embrace something that you might be uncomfortable with, because we have relationship, then you actually know I evidently am speaking for the good of what we all are endeavoring to do. But being the scientist, I really run toward a strategic plan. Every organization I've been a part of, whether you call it a plan on a page, but we have a strategy document that helps us ascertain what's important. Otherwise, in marketing, I call it the whack-a-mole game. People bring you all kinds of things that really had nothing to do with you, but give it to marketing. And the next thing you know, you're popping on every single thing and you're not doing anything that you want. So my team, we always have to have a little game to make sure work is fun, even as big people. So one of my bosses used to call it the stinky fish. So I went to one of the hunting stores and I bought this stuffed fish. And the idea was, if you walk into a meeting and people give to you something that rightly does not belong to you, I want to make sure that you walk out without that fish. So if you come back from meetings and you bring back issues, problems that had nothing to do with the mission and purpose of our team, we had the right to give you the stinky fish. So you never wanted the fish on your desk because you know that you actually did something that didn't follow the strategy. And I think whether it's C-suite, whether it's with the team, when you're clear on what you're trying to do together, why you've made those choices, and to know that when I make a decision that doesn't align with what you thought about, you know that it's through a relationship that I am for the good of the collective. It's worked a lot. That doesn't mean that we all agree. It just means that there's robust dialogue. How's that? I don't know if we have time for one more, if there was one more. If not, I'm around all day. And again, thank you for your time.